Hello ladies and gentlemen, what is up? This is Franklin from the Ticklefy channel. Today we'll be doing our WWDC 2014 recap, so let's get started. So in the first part of the keynote, Tim Cook kind of got on stage and then he started doing an intro for OS X Yosemite, which is the next iteration of Mac OS X. And they started it out by comparing the OS X Mavericks adoption rate with the Windows 8 adoption rate, and the numbers were, well, let's just say that numbers don't lie. So Mavericks had an adoption rate of over 50%, while Windows was stuck somewhere around 10 to 20%. So yeah, that just goes to show you, one, Windows 8 is really terrible, and Mavericks is kind of awesome. So yeah. So then he eventually invited Craig Federighi on stage to talk about OS X Yosemite. So OS X Yosemite, or I'll just refer to OS X 10.10 from this point on, is basically an iOS 7ified version of OS X. So it has the flatter look, the transparency all throughout, with like things are kind of transparent so you can see your desktop, things like that. Redesigned apps. They also made the toolbars from the Finder window to the Safari windows. They made the toolbars simpler to maximize the space for content, so that's very nice. So yeah, they did a major overhaul to look. Same thing with the iOS 6 to iOS 7 change. They just kind of took Crayola crayons and just colored over the thing. But they also added a bunch of really cool features as well. One of them is the Mail app, and what this allows you to do is allows you to email attachments of up to 5 gigabytes. So that's really cool, and that will come in very useful. Another thing is iCloud Drive, which I'll be getting into later in the video. And also they introduced a new thing called continuity, which works between Mac and iOS. And the basic philosophy behind it is that you should be able to continue your work from an iPad and to an iPhone or to another Mac. The transition should be seamless. So part of that feature, that strategy, I guess you could say, is that AirDrop now works between Mac and iOS. That is really cool. You can transfer photos, emails, web pages in between that Macs and iOS devices. Another thing with that connectivity, or continuity thing rather, is actually you can get a call on your iPhone and it'll push it out to your iPad and your Mac. So you can pick up a phone call that's going in through your iPhone on your Mac, which is really cool. And the same goes, you can dial a number using your Mac now. That is pretty darn cool, honestly. Amazing. It's not that far-fetched, but it's the little things, it really is. And so next we have Instant Hotspot, which basically the way it works is, if your phone is really close to your computer, you can go on your OS X Yosemite Mac, go into Wi-Fi and select your phone, and it'll connect automatically. No need to enter a password or anything. The only problem I see there is, how are you going to authenticate this? And I'm sure they'll maybe do something like, they'll probably do an authentication via Apple ID or something like that. Yeah, because otherwise it'd be a very big mess. And also they're introducing a new Photos app, which will be coming out later next year, I believe. Kind of the same thing the iOS app does. Kind of merges Photos and iPhoto into one application, and we'll be looking forward to that. So the next part of the keynote began with Tim Cook once again on stage talking about the comparison between adoption rates between KitKat and iOS 7. Now, this you can't really blame Android for because of fragmentation. That's a huge mess. They're working on it, but it's nowhere near iOS. And once again, numbers don't lie. iOS 7 rather, adoption rates are through the darn roof. But yeah, that is how he began that keynote. And so one of the really interesting and awesome new features of iOS 8 is the interactive notifications that allow you to reply within that notification, so you don't even have to leave the app that you're in right now. So you can reply to a text message, like a status on Facebook, or respond to things like that. Also, in your multitasking thing, instead of just the applications on the top, it also has your contacts, so you can access the contacts that you use most, like favorites or recents, and call them, FaceTime them, things like that. And for the iPad, there is now a sidebar for your reading list, your history, I think, stuff like that. And also, this is kind of a really cool power user feature. While you're composing an email in the Mail app, you can actually swipe down to access your inbox while you're composing an email. That's kind of a really cool feature. And this is something that is really awesome. So Spotlight for years has been something that I don't really like to use. I think it's a hassle. I don't know why they put it on there, but now it allows you to look for Wikipedia results, movie theaters, basically everything Siri can do, except for in Spotlight. It also looks up applications on the App Store, songs, things like that. That makes it extremely useful. Same goes with on OS X Yosemite now. So that is an extremely useful feature. I'm so glad they added that. I think that'll finally get me to use Spotlight, which is very interesting. And so another thing that they added in iOS 8 is custom keyboards. So now you can download third-party keyboards, which allows for things like swipe type, which Android has had for a while. And also, predictive type built in, which is awesome. And not only is it just your average predictive type, it's personalized, and this also recognizes the people that you're talking to. So if it's with someone you have a work relationship with, the predictive type will track through your texting patterns, and it'll know to use more formal forms of words instead of the less informal or colloquial speech, say if you're talking to a family member. And of course this data is all stored locally on your phone, so Apple claims you don't have to worry about privacy. Again, continuity is a really cool thing. I already kind of explained that with Yosemite. But this also works for if you're working on a Keynote document, say you're typing up, or a Pages document, you're typing up a paper on your iPad, and then you walk towards your MacBook Pro. And the really cool thing is that your Mac will automatically detect it. So on your phone or your iPad, a badge will appear, and I'll have to swipe up, and then it'll appear on your Mac, and you just keep on going where you left off. So it's very seamless, really cool, really awesome. And so another thing, Siri, they've boosted, which is, and another thing is Siri. So what they've done to Siri is actually what Google has had for a long time, which is where you can say, oh, okay, Google, and it will automatically pop up. Well, now you can say, hey, Siri, and it'll do the same thing. Another thing is, show what it thinks you're saying as you're saying it. So that Google now has had that for a while now. It's just kind of a really nice feature that they finally cut around to asking. Now for the messages, they boosted that application a lot by adding really nice features to group threads. So you can rename threads, you can add or remove people. Yay, that's a very nice thing. You can also snooze or silence threads, which are very useful for those really talkative group threads. There's also a tap to talk, where you can tap and record a message to send. Same thing works for photos, videos, things like that. And now on to iCloud Drive. Basically what iCloud Drive is, it's kind of like Apple's version of Dropbox or iDisk, what they had before they got rid of MobileMe. So you can store all your Apple files and any other type of file as well, which is really, really cool and really awesome stuff like that. Amazing. And also we have family sharing, which basically allows you to share files share photos between families, and it works very nicely because you don't even have to have a web browser to use it. So an Apple device to be able to use it. So what you would do is, say you create an album, and if the person has an Apple device, easy peasy. They just click the link and it opens it on your computer. If not, the link will open a browser window where you can access a private album, say when you're sharing photos. So it's much easier than emailing photos. That's just a pain in the butt, to be honest with you. That's ridiculous. But yeah, so they've added that, which is really nice. And they've also added a health app, and it's actually just called Health. And the development, or the SDK for that, is HealthKit. And that brings us to the HomeKit, which allows for home automation, things such as Nest thermostat or the Philips Hue light bulb, which is really cool. That's something that we have yet to see it blossom. It hasn't really been developed that much, so that I look forward to seeing stuff like that. And also for the family sharing thing, it also allows you to share iTunes media, so for up to 6 devices. So that includes apps, movies, songs, everything you purchase on iTunes. Amazing, very useful feature. And also, this year's WWDC's hallmark was probably all the developer features. That is including all the APIs they released. They released the camera manual control API, so you can manually control the settings on the camera app. Honestly, just awesome for power users and people who are into photography like me. Also, the HomeKit and HealthKit SDK I already talked about. Also, a Touch ID API, which allows Touch ID to be implemented for instead of a password for other apps, so that could include payments for PayPal, things like that. Really excited to see what that brings us, or what that future holds, stuff like that, which is really awesome. So that'll include that part of the keynote, which leads into the kind of the super developer hardcore part of the keynote, and that's when they announced that the App Store will include new features like allowing developers to bundle apps at a discounted rate, so they've never done that before. They've also allowed app previews in the form of videos. Previously, you could only use screenshots, but now with that new release, you can also put up preview videos. Also, they've unlocked a new thing, or released a new thing called Test Flight, which allows developers to let consumers beta test their apps, which is very nice, beneficial for both the developer and the consumer. Awesome thing. And so another thing called extendability, which is really nice, and it allows for third-party apps to ask for services and other third-party apps, and we'll get into that more later as more information goes out. But anyways, they finally added widgets. Awesome. Not quite what Android is like, but basically you swipe down from Notification Center and you have widgets. Awesome. Not quite where I want it to be yet, but very good step. That's something I honestly never thought Apple would do, but awesome that they did that. And so now we want to talk about one of the most, kind of the one more thing release of this announcement, that is Swift. So the way Apple described this is Objective-C without all the hassle of C. So now you can probably tell Swift is a new programming language that Apple released. So now, let's just take a moment and ponder on that. Apple released a programming language at WWDC, so you can see why this is probably one of the most influential, or the most memorable or monumental WWDCs in all of Apple's history. They released a freaking programming language. I mean, for goodness sakes, that's about as high as you can go. So yeah, they touted it as having the simplicity and ease of use as a scripting language, while being as powerful as, something like Objective-C. So there are only two ways that this could go. One, it's amazing, everything's awesome, goes as planned, and two, it's a flop. So hopefully it won't be a flop, otherwise that'd be a major flop. Like, yeah. So, features, they've introduced the playground so you can see how your code manipulates the app in real time, and yeah, they've touted simplicity, a modernization, and also the friendliness to new programmers. So that's very exciting. Time will tell how Swift holds up. But yeah, that concludes this recap of the releases and announcement at WWDC 2014. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. This is Franklin from the Techify channel. Signing out, guys. Bye-bye.